Welcome back to Dat Build. Today is a day of reflection in that, as I kind of said last week, I really screwed up with regards to working on the Beetle, and of course today is more or less going to be showing exactly what happened. And it all stems from, if you didn't see the spoiler, this is basically what you missed. More or less, yeah, there's a bit of scuffing on the guard, and as we can see, it's also broken through. And where that actually came to be from was from my rushing the job, and of course cutting a few corners, doing things really sloppily, to say the least. Got the job done for the most part. Everything turned out quite well, except for one vital thing. If you did watch the video last week, you can see there's a few things that aren't really great in how I actually tackled them and whatnot. The biggest thing is though, was putting the wheels back onto the car. Yeah. More or less, this is one of those things where you blame the tool for blaming yourself at the same time. I'm not making an excuse, though it sounds like an excuse. At the end of the day, I screwed up. But the trouble is that I used a tool I wasn't used to. My handheld rattle gun, whatever you want to call them, the impact drivers, I know off the bat that the second setting is really quite ample to be able to fasten wheel bolts or nuts to keep the wheels on the car. And I treated this other unit, which was not mine, exactly the same way. Setting 2, zip, 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 second round once again, job done. Wasn't enough. And then of course when I looked up the specs after the event, obviously, I discovered that it was way off from being able to tighten those things. It's more or less half the amount of torque required. So realistically, I should have used this and actually checked. But in blind faith on my part, simply just accepting every tool's the same, which it clearly isn't, driving along, and then all of a sudden the wheel just comes off. And luckily at the time I was only doing maybe 35 kilometers, potentially even less given the very small amount of damage done to the car. But it's just the fact that because the car was so low, when the wheel popped off, it kind of took the guard with it. It didn't really rip it off of the body, luckily enough, but it obviously did a bit of damage, cracked it. There's a piece that's kind of pushed upwards and everything like that. The inner guard, the liner and everything like that's slightly torn. But beyond that, there was a bit of undercarriage scraping. Not too much. For the most part, it was a really light skimming to where the control arm bolts onto. And it's one of those things where you could easily repair it, and I have for now, to a degree. I may take it a little bit further and actually have that welded, like an actual plate welded on that spot for now, just for a bit of reinforcement. Probably really doesn't need it for the most part. Everything is perfectly fine underneath there. A couple of scuffs on the front bumper. Obviously the guard itself is not in the greatest order. The wheel, unfortunately, did have a bit of a corkscrew effect going on from where it rubbed against the brake caliper. Caliper, not too bad. The rotor itself, it did obviously impact the ground, and as you can see, there is a bit of a flat section there as well. So the brakes were going to be replaced anyway. The replacement rotors, because I want the car back on the road sooner rather than later, I managed to actually score a set of rotors, brand new ones, so cheap. Literally the price of one brand new one, I got the pair, and still even less than that. So I'm cheering about that. Just an incorrect purchase on someone's part, I managed to score. So brake pads, new set obviously to go along with those ones. I'll be fitting those up in the future. I'm still waiting for those little bolts, because when the left side dropped, the driver's side didn't have the little locator bolt for the rotor. Passenger side then, of course, with the impact, it broke off. So I needed to, luckily I bought two. They're in transit, just waiting for them to arrive. So once that's done, it'll be a whole new brake system. Drop links are also on their way as well, so that kind of gives me an excuse to do both the rotors, brake pads and the drop links at the same time. Just tightens and freshens up that whole front end. I may even then go about doing a fluid flush of the brake fluid as well, just to freshen that. Rears aren't too bad, and of course you tend to use the fronts more than the rears anyway, just the way the car is. So I've just decided to leave the rears for now. Do the fronts, they're the most vital. They were worn, I was going to say a different word then, but they were really quite perished, so they're going to get replaced. Silver linings, you've got to kind of look back on these sort of things and laugh. And of course, in finally doing the work, making sure the wheels were torqued down, and of course they are torqued to spec now, properly torqued to spec, not just trusting the rattle gun, but even then, again, use my rattle gun. There was maybe a slight, not even quarter turn left on the torque wrench. So it's just a factor of knowing your tools, not trusting your tools so much, always double check, which I really should have, especially with unknown tools, but nevertheless, I simply rushed the job, and it is my fault. Purely at the end of the day, I really just wanted to get that done. I was worn out, I was tired, I was sore, I was exhausted, I just wanted to get home. This was done at the shop, obviously, because it was raining at the time too. Again, the rain's just doing my head in. I want to get car work done. I don't really have a garage as such, so driveway work it is, and it just keeps raining and raining and raining, and we're supposed to get more rain yet to come. Thank you, La Nina. But anyway, so at the end of the day, it's a lesson learned very heavily, and something I'll never forget. But as said, luckily no one was injured, no one else was involved. It was simply a factor that the wheel popped off, hit the curb, landed on its side, and then of course the car dropped and slid for a very short amount of distance. Thankfully a couple of people actually did come and lend me a hand. Extremely grateful, and I wish I would have thanked them more, because I was just in an odd state of mind at that point. This is the following day, not that same day. But yeah, just sheer stupidity on my part, and I can't believe that the most basic of all things, of everything else I've done in the past and on that car, and of course the job that I did for that car to remove as much as I did, the suspension, etc. and so on, the fact that I just didn't do up the wheel nuts, it's absurd. But there we go. As perfect as I wish I was, I'm certainly not. But anyway, that is more or less this episode in a nutshell. I was really just going to go for the fact of enforcing to everyone just the fact that if you overlook the most basic things, things turn out really poorly. Luckily for me, it's turned out reasonably well, all things considered, obviously. But just don't ever, 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 ever rush a job. Don't ever think that once you've done something that it's sorted. Always double check, because as soon as you don't, something like this happens. But fun factor, I actually did order a new tool, which instead of replacing the guard off the bat, because it does have that damage on there, I've actually got a new tool coming that I'm actually quite keen to try out. So I'm going to be filming a bit of that. I'll be doing a bit of panel repair on the guard. So anyone who's interested in that one, if you're having fun factor trying to get a guard like I am at the moment, yeah, just stick around for that one. That's probably coming up towards, I'd say, the end of the month, if not following thereon. But yeah, they've got that. Obviously the new brakes going on, the drop links going on. I still have yet to check the error codes, everything like that. I think I've still got the error code with regards to the coolant temp sensor. I have got a new control box or relay box come in, so that'll be fitted up soon enough as well. I may do that with the brakes alongside, because the car will be jacked up again once more. But yeah, apart from that, it's yeah, just reflecting on something so incredibly stupid and annoying, because I damaged the car, I didn't really need to. All new wheel bolts all around, replaced them because the ones that were on the driver's side, they were completely chewed out. The other ones, because the wheels had also started to come away a little bit. It was only one wheel that came off, but all of them are loose. Replaced all 20 wheel bolts, and I think I'm going to be hanging one of the wheel bolts up at the door here, just as a friendly reminder to always check that everything's tightened. It's also got the torque specs in there, 120 Newton meters, by the way, in case you're wondering. So anyway, that is pretty much this episode. Just me blabbering on, showing you a bit of video, but yeah, emphasizing the fact, never cut a corner, never rush a job, etc, etc, etc. But yeah, the car will live on, obviously. Damage is not that bad. I've seen worse, way worse. Been involved with way worse too. Not on account of me though, not on account of work anyway. But that's going to do it again today, guys. So thank you very much for joining me. As always, like, subscribe, comment below, etc. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbor. Torque wrench everything. Until next time, guys. Cheers.